Alright, I think I'm Gucci now. Uh, where like I'm reminded of like my own, was it like solipsism? Where like technically your own, one's own reality is kind of like the only thing that's like truly absolute at the end of the day. Because when you're 8 feet under, the body that gets buried is kind of yours. No, it's not really anyone else's. So like in terms of like priority list, you should always be number one. So like past gaslights, past pressures, and like criticisms and whatnot. Like your own personal conviction, your own thesis, and your own perspective is sort of like what you should listen to. You should listen to yourself, pretty much. Simple as that. And I simply wavered because we're all human, so I'm human, and me with being human, I underwent an episode wherein I overweight everything, all of the voices around me instead of the one that's in me. And the reason why I fell under that whole death spiral is because I understand that your own perspective, it can have lapses in judgment. You can only see things in first person by so much. You can't see in third or second person because that's kind of like the whole point of like first person, you know? You need a mirror, pretty much, is what I'm saying. But I've through all of my introspection and digestion, I realized that you know the concept of mirror doesn't necessarily have to be that you require external validation, but rather you need to actually wait. I'm like doing my hair. Yeah, instead of like external validation, where like you ask others or everywhere else to like, oh hey, you know, like is what I'm thinking like, you know, coherent? The thing you just gotta ask is like whether or not it's coherent. There we go. So when I ask myself, oh, you know, everything that I'm thinking about, is it coherent? And my answer is yes. That is enough. Because fundamentally, that's kind of just how it goes, right? Mirror, third party perspective, the limitations of first person, it doesn't really override like the whole personal coherence thing. Because that's kind of the fundamental to like cognition, right? It's just a game of is it coherent or is it incoherent? My old brain was saying you need third party, you need mirror, there's limitations to first person because what is coherent to oneself doesn't necessarily mean it will be coherent for like everywhere else, and that is true. But what value is there exactly to derive from third party input? The only input, the only output that comes from weighing external inputs is they override, say, like this is coherent. If you input a third party, what happens? There's only there's only one outcome. Either there's only one out yeah, one or two outcomes. There's only two outcomes. There we go. I said one because technically like there's no state change. Yeah, there's only two outcomes. Either the state doesn't change and they confirm, yeah, it is valid, or they say that it isn't coherent and they invalidate the whole thing. So it's mostly just an audit, the whole like third party thing. But you kind of see like the fundamental of it, right? The fundamental of it is that the only value with third parties is invalidation. Validation, invalidation, and if you have your own internal clocks already, you don't really need validation. So the only value left would be invalidation. But what value is there in invalidation if you input it in everything else? If you weigh it over yourself. So like this is kind of the math, right? Maybe I could like draw paint. Where's paint? Oh, like the math doesn't make sense, right? Coherence. So you brain, you others. Now, old brain was saying that there's limitation to first person. First person equals limits. So you need to weigh in others. But how do you weigh in others? It cannot be equal. There is always a hierarchy. So my old brain was essentially doing this, putting it above me. I became two, others became one. Because there is a limit to one. There's a limit to two, so since there's a limit, then it should be lower. But then the thing with others, wait, is it showing properly? Oh shit, it's not showing properly. How do I do this? Oh, there we go. Okay. So old was this. One others, two me, because first person has limits. But the thing with others is that either it validates or invalidates. That is the only function that it has. Now, there is no use for this. This has no value. So the only real value is this one, invalid. If you put others for the role of invalidating, okay, actually, you know, why is there like no value for validation? There's no value in validation because like if you're gonna be seeking third parties just to seek validation, then that's essentially just you saying that your internal compass is weak. First person lacking. It's a form of compensation. There we go. This doesn't have any value because it's fundamentally just compensation. So the only value there is invalidation because it's the only thing that it isn't a form of compensation. It is a form of audit. So if the function of others is just invalid and you put it above you, then you're essentially just delegating coherence. You're delegating it, which is a form of just, you know, um, a form of what are the terms? It's like so many terms for it, right? Surrender, um, capitulation. There we go. Which is just like a form of capitulation. When you delegate your own coherence, it is just a form of capitulation. And you should never capitulate because when you are 8 feet under, it is just gonna be you and you alone. Yeah, when you're knocked out, is you. It's just gonna be you. No one else. So you should never delegate your own coherence because 8 feet under, it's just gonna be you, only you, no one else. Get hit by a car, it's just you. It won't be anyone else. When your vessel falls, crumbles, turns to ash, it's just you. So your coherence must never be delegated because your own vessel is your own vessel. So this whole thing becomes incoherent. I should not be weighing others above mine just because first person has limits, because the only role others have is to invalid. And when you invalid for the sake of like invalidation, it's just a form of it's just a form of delegation. And you don't want to delegate because your own vessel is just your own vessel. So what is like sort of the principle? The principle is, I guess, one, your vessel is absolute. Your vessel is absolute. Like, schizophrenics, they will get scared on stuff they see, and then they ask others if it's real, and then it's not real, but they're still scared. Like, you can't change the fear because that is truly their reality. They see it. It is real for them. It is absolute. Your own vessel is absolute. Your own reality is absolute. Solipsism or whatever. The second principle is that weighing, just because your first person is limited, doesn't mean you should weigh others above yours. There is hierarchy. Hierarchies are absolute. Hierarchy, absolute. So hierarchies are absolute. Your vessel is absolute. Hierarchies are absolute. The third is others only serve to functionally invalid. The invalid. So the conclusion is others should always be below you. Others below you. And so the net effect is me. I'm back in the groove, man. I'm number one again. And me being number one, my conviction is taking the driver's seat again. And I'm chilling and I'm like happy again and stuff. And that's all, I guess.